So, welcome everybody to the second day of the second edition of Biostock Life Science Summit. Here from Medicon Village in Lund, Sweden. Yesterday we have a jam-packed day. We had 24, I think, companies showcasing to around 200 investors in the room, which was great. We had a few thousand watching online, which is also very impressive. And I'd like to extend my gratitude to everyone who attended yesterday. However, today is a new day, and we also have an exciting program for this afternoon. My name is Jonas Söderström. I am the CEO of Biostock. And we at Biostock believe that companies within the life science sector in Sweden, in the Nordics, we'd like to contribute with creating platforms for connecting innovation and capital, and of course for providing a platform for contacts to be made that can create new partnerships. And partnerships is what this day is all about. We started the day. We actually started the day half an hour late, so we are doing great time now. We're only 5 minutes late as of now. We have had a half day of interesting presentations behind closed doors with three of our distinguished guests here today, representatives from the pharmaceutical companies AstraZeneca, Bayer, and Johnson & Johnson. And we will spend this afternoon together with them. And the first thing we are going to do is to invite the three companies up here on stage to do a panel discussion. And this panel discussion is on, industry insights around partnering in the Nordic region. So it is my distinct pleasure to invite to the stage Åsa Sjöholm Timén from AstraZeneca, and Ralf Ackerman of Bayer, and also Anna Gran of Johnson & Johnson. Welcome. There you go. And there. And I'm just going to take a seat here and put this little timer on so that we know that we're keeping time. So, first of all, thank you very much for joining us here today. It's a great pleasure to have you. I thought that it's always nice to have a short presentation of each of you. So, Anna, would you like to start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, and I think that's only fair given that we've been the mysterious people in the back of the room this morning. My name is Anna Gran. I work for Johnson & Johnson, specifically our innovation center, so I'm part of Johnson & Johnson Innovation. Not going to share that much more about it. I assume I will be given a chance to reverse pitch. I have a background in biomedical research, so I'm also a scientist by heart. I've also worked with launching and also leading the launch of a couple of cancer drugs in the Nordics for Janssen, our pharmaceuticals business. And today I work with business development and specifically partnering on early stage. So mainly before, if you think pharma, then proper clinical proof of concept. Thank you.
Thank you. Ralf?
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting me and us, Bayer. So very happy about that. Myself, I am by education, I am a physician, worked as such for around 10 years. And then have a career in the industry for around 20 years. I've been various local, regional, and global positions. And in my present role in Bayer, I'm the medical director for Denmark, Norway, and Iceland. Yes.
Thank you very much. Åsa.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me and my colleague Kai here as well today. My name is Åsa Sjöholm Timén, and I work for the late-stage transaction team at AstraZeneca. And I have a background with a PhD in organic chemistry and started my career in the pharmaceutical industry with discovery research, but soon moved into business development. And I worked both for AstraZeneca and some smaller companies as well.
Thank you very much, Åsa. So, when looking at partnering from a broad perspective, I mean, all pharma companies, they have internal R&D, but sometimes you need to reach out and to get inspired and get injections from external innovation as well. How important is this for Johnson & Johnson, for example?
Well, I would like to say very important. I'll get to that in a moment, but I would also like to say that we're definitely an R&D company. We're not a business development company. We certainly have a long legacy in internal R&D as well as medicines that we are still developing and bringing new medicines to market that stem from our internal labs. However, if you look at, for example, our company, and I'm sure it's matched by other companies, over 2/3 of, I would say specifically the pharma sector projects have an external origin at some point in time. So that's why I'm saying it is very important. And also if you look, I think I saw some statistics some years ago that 80% of all innovation stems from SMEs and academia, but then 80% of the drugs that are launched are actually launched by big companies. So somewhere along the way, there is a transfer. And so the answer to the question is it's natural, it's part of the business, and it's certainly very important for us because we like to work with innovation regardless of whether it comes from our labs or somewhere else.
Ralph, from Bayer's perspective, has the outlook or the desire to enter partnerships, has it changed in any way during the last, you said you have been in this business for 20 years. Have you been in Bayer for 20 years, or is it?
No.
Okay, so can you tell me something about Bayer's outlook on external innovation?
First of all, it's extremely important for us as a life science company, the aspect of innovation. I mean, Bayer started with the first production of aspirin in 1899. In 1899, and you can still go out there and buy the drug of today. If you look at when Bayer started, around 150 years ago in the 1860s, what was the life expectancy at that time? It was around 40 years. What is it today? For somebody like me or us, around 80 years. That's what I call innovation. And that cannot happen without all these steps that all of us, companies, would have been through. So yes, it's important, and it's important only for us internally. No, it's not. It's important also to reach out and seek collaborations, seek innovation together with partnerships, licensing agreements, whatever. And that we in Bayer are very active within, and I'll come a bit back to that in my presentation later on. So yes, it's extremely important for us because in today's world, the complexity, the various methods, the various opportunities, you cannot be there all by yourself and invent everything yourself. Yeah.
Also, being back, I was going to say back at the crime scene, but AstraZeneca, what's your view on external partnerships?
So that is really important to AstraZeneca, and although we do have extensive internal capabilities all the way from discovery until commercialization, we want to access the best science. And we don't have monopoly on the best science, even though we have large resources internally. So yes, it's definitely very important to our business and to our success.
And as you've all seen now in the earlier session of today, there are a lot of great ideas around and many interesting projects. But what is it that specifically makes a project attractive to a big pharma company? Who wants to start?
I can start. Yeah. First of all, there has to be a medical need. And the second one for us, it's not to be a me too concept, product, whatever. And then it can be whatever it is. It can be chemical compounds, it can be digital technology, it can be behavior science, all that is relevant and important for our products, the drugs, the use of them, the effect of them, and the well-being of people and relatives affected by the diseases that we treat. Elements there that can improve this are important for us.
Åsa?
Yeah, so I would essentially agree with everything you say, and I would also like to add to that we have looked back on our internal portfolio over a number of years and tried to identify what really does make a difference and to make a product that is making a true difference to the patients. And we have identified basically what we call the 5 R's. So we would say that we are looking for a product that has got the right target, it reaches the right tissue, it's got the right safety profile, and it's treating the right patients that we are looking to treat. And in the end, of course, it needs to have the right commercial case as well, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to continue with the next wave of drug development efforts. So those are the criteria that all our internal programs are being measured on, but also those opportunities that comes to us that we look at.
I think what's been said already is that the science always comes first, right? And it needs to be big leaps and not just small steps forward. And I think in addition, for us, it makes less of a difference whether it's patented. It needs to be patentable. So it needs to be truly novel, and also there needs to be already around that patent, or together then exploring, there needs to be a conclusion that there is a space to actually build a business around. And then I think because we have a more of a collaborative model where most of our projects at the innovation centers are co-development projects, so we like to work with a strong team. So we also look at the capabilities. If we like the science, can we also work with the people, and do we need to add to that team? And is it a team that we can kind of work with that will still own the project and take it forward?
And a few expressions that we hear a lot when it comes to, Ralph, you mentioned Me Too projects or Me Too products. I mean, when you're investing, when you decide to invest in a science project, what's more important, that it's first in class, or could it also be that it's best in class? What would you say, Åsa?
So I would say that I think what I just recently mentioned before, it's really the need of the patients, the need with, or the fit with our company, and then that evaluation that we do along the way that is important. So we see if there is a benefit, no matter if it's first in class or best in class, and if we see that it actually meets that need that's out there among the patients, then I wouldn't distinguish either or for all indications or all treatments, but it's really done that assessment on a case-by-case basis.
And is it not true though that there are areas that sort of gain the spotlight and become more interesting and more hot? For example, I mean, obviously because of scientific breakthroughs, like with immuno-oncology, for example. But
I can comment on that. I mean, of course, we Bayer as a company, we have some focus areas, and of course, an area I think for every pharma today. I mean, oncology is really an area where a lot is happening today, and the technologies are fascinating and create miracles sometimes, but there are also big risks and big failures. So yes, there is some kind of focus and key interest, but things may pop up which could be interesting and are disruptive or whatever. And again, I'm not in business development. I'm in the medical part of the organization, but I, of course, by experience and through my work, see where the need is also. And that also, you can say, reinforces sometimes, wow, this is really something that could make a difference for the patient, his family, or the human population in general. I mean, and these compounds have been invented, and they will also come in the future.
I think you can kind of stir the soup a little bit more and say, yes, there's first in class and best in class, and then there's a whole new class. Like, for example, when the biologics came out, or gene therapy, or cell therapy, or other kind of modalities that are novel. And yes, there's an advantage to be a first mover. I think it's commonly known that the first 6 months after launch are crucial to commercial success of a drug. It's kind of a magic time where you can either kind of rise up or really not ever be able to catch up. But then at the same time, there's the risk of, if you're truly bringing something that's a big leap and that's not just another kind of target, but another type of therapy, then you have to sort out the business model in your first in class, completely new class type of treatment, and regulatory hurdles and all of that. So that is a risk. But again, the rewards could be certainly worth it. And for us as well, it matters less. I think, we're happy to see both, as long as the science and the potential is great.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that, again, AstraZeneca is really looking at novel and great science. And so we believe that innovation is really what drives growth, and that is the backbone of what we do.
So you also mentioned risk, and when balancing risk and value, I mean, is there a preference among you guys about when it comes to early development stage or late stage partnership, so to speak, in the product development phases?
Well, the innovation centers as such, and Johnson & Johnson Innovation, where I belong, invest in projects that are prior to a proper clinical proof of concept. Maybe for another company that's already early. For scientists, certainly that could already be a kind of a late stage for if you're a bench scientist. I think it depends on what you invest in, or what the business case is, right? If certainly if you have early science that's truly exciting and it's a sound project, and you find 10 or 20 of those, it costs less to check out with a few really good killer experiments if it's actually going to work or not to the next stage, than investing your whole kind of pot of money in one clinical trial for one drug in later stage. So balancing that out, I think, is really important. But certainly for us at the Innovation Center, we also want to access the best science, and we believe that going in early, we can go in earlier as more transformative the science is. It's certainly part of our strategy.
I'm amazed how fast time flies, first of all. So I'll just add, from each and one of you, if there's a specific trend that you're watching extra closely right now, what would that be? If we start with you, Ralph, what are you most... You mentioned...
What an easy question, yes. But there are many trends. I think there are two. One of them is the whole area of digitalization that happens in the world today. We are watching that very closely. We're working around it. We have innovation centers. We have initiatives around it. And that is important. It is here to stay, and it will come even more. How the future looks, nobody of us knows, but it has an impact on the development of the drugs, on the use of the drugs, and also the whole environment around treatment of major or minor disease and therapy areas. So I think that is important. And the other one is, I mean, what is innovation? Innovation, but you should actually say, what does innovation do for me, What does it actually mean to me? What is good innovation? I think the big difference between previous and now and the future is that previously innovation, it was, from a pharma perspective, it was treatment, some kind of treatment, a pill or whatever, injection. I think today in the future, it's actually cure. Looking at the gene technologies, CRISPR-Cas technology or fusions or whatever, I mean, things are coming up that almost cure diseases or completely eliminate tumors. I think that is to look out and watch out for. Where are the breakthroughs coming there? So if I should mention two, that would be two at least from my perspective where I sit. And again, I'm not in business development, but that's where I would look.
Well, I fully agree. I was actually going to also mention cure and prevention, because we're in a very good place right now. I think we're looking at really good response rates in many cancer trials. In the industry in general, you're able to, prevent or cure cancer that couldn't be treated before, or at least was just barely maintained, right? And HIV, for example, there are vaccines in trials and certainly good antivirals as well in the market. So we're moving into a situation where we're maybe looking at treating healthier people instead of the really sick people. We haven't really been able to get to a point where we at J&J call it intercepting disease already, when you may not feel symptoms or you may not even know that you're sick, because today you wouldn't be picked up as a sick person. So that certainly is a trend that that we're working on, that we're certainly like to see continue as well and succeed for sure.
Yeah, and I think from being a very traditional small molecule company, we've moved into biologics and also looking at other alternative modalities. But we are, of course, as you are, looking into the digital health. But precision medicine in general, I know that's a term that's been around now for quite some time. But when you do look into that more in detail, we're talking diagnostics, different types of assessment of more targeted treatments and so forth, and various support technologies and so forth that can increase the output of therapy and so forth.
So with just 1 minute left, if you were to summarize in one word the future outlook of partnering in the Nordics, what would you say? I'm looking for stuff like hopeful and, tremendous.
I'd probably say excellent science, and I'm hopeful to see tremendous successes in actually bringing that to patients and people.
Very well put. Should we consider that she took you off the hook there?
Yeah, because that was way many more than one word.
It was, yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No,
Exactly.
I didn't listen to you very well, I think.
That was great. So time for this panel session is out. Now we're going to have the pleasure to actually hear you talk more in detail about what you and your respective companies are doing within partnering activities. So we're going to ask Åsa to stay on stage, and Ralph and Anna, you can join us a little bit later. Thank you very much for now. So, and Åsa will also have the pleasure of being joined by Kai Brickman from AstraZeneca. Welcome.
Thank you, Jonas. Okay, for the sake of time, let us directly continue. My name is Kai Brickman. I am also from AstraZeneca. You met my colleague Åsa already during the panel session here. So both of us will now give short presentation about AstraZeneca. We have planned for 15 minutes. I will plan to talk about 5-6 minutes just about some corporate information about AstraZeneca, and then also will be a little bit more specific about our partnering activities in the Nordics. So to say, we are both members of AstraZeneca's business development teams and are both located at AstraZeneca Gothenburg. Let me just see. This here should move now.
Let's see. I might have turned off. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and in AstraZeneca's ambition to follow the science and really being close to breakthrough science all the time, we have located our 3 major research centers close to bioscience clusters. So we have our research site in Gaithersburg in the US, which is close to the National Institute of Health. We have Cambridge, close to the university and the biotech company community there, and then of course Gothenburg, with its connection to Karolinska, and also to Medicon Village here in Lund. Always when I talk in Sweden about AstraZeneca, I cannot resist to say a little bit more about AstraZeneca and Gothenburg. As I said, Gothenburg is one of our major research sites. We have around 2,500 people working there. We are supporting all of our core therapeutic areas, and it is a fantastic site. And please allow me some personal reflections, because I have been at this site now for more than 21 years, and I am still excited to come to work there every day, because it is one of the sites where we really have capabilities to support all stages of AstraZeneca's medicines. So you really find experts there that know everything about target identification, but you can also easily walk out to the corridor and find colleagues that really are able to support you in how to design a phase 3 clinical trial. Some global dimensions of AstraZeneca. We are a global pharmaceutical company. We are almost 65,000 employees all over the world. Our product sales in last year were 21.1 billion, and that was up 4%. And I think those of you who have followed AstraZeneca during recent years, we had really, I think, an ambition to return to growth. And I think we have seen this, I think, last year, and that actually continued this year. I think those of you that follow the news, I think, have probably seen our report for the first 9 months this year, and sales are up 13%. So really, I think, a great company to be in. I think we still also make some revenue from externalization, and this is because we really want to focus our R&D money that we spend every year. It's almost $6 billion on our core therapeutic areas. Core therapeutic areas, oncology, cardiovascular, renal and metabolism, and also respiratory. These are the areas where we really focus on. As Åsa mentioned, a few years ago, when you came to AstraZeneca, let us say when I started at AstraZeneca, which is now more than 20 years ago, you came to a site working on small molecules, quite a closed community. Now you come to AstraZeneca, we have capabilities in small molecules, biologics, we work with protein engineering, we focus on the devices, diagnostics, and quite a lot also in new modalities. And I had the privilege to be one of AstraZeneca's deal makers during these recent years, where we really moved from small molecules to other modalities. So I had been working on the deal with Moderna to get modified RNAs into the portfolio. I worked with Ionis Pharmaceuticals to get antisense oligos into the portfolio. And I'm also very happy that I did a deal in Sweden quite recently with Procella, which started actually AstraZeneca's activities towards cell therapy. High-level business development slide. I think you see some of the partnerships that we did recently. I don't want to go through this. Just to mention, as many big pharma companies, we are of course considering different types of deal activities. We can do in-licensings, we can do acquisitions, we also do externalizations, and also divestments when we think a partner is better suited to commercialize an AstraZeneca product that is no longer within our core interest. And I think there's a very good example of a deal that Åsa closed very recently, I think, where the rights of Losec, omeprazole, were divested to a German company. This is actually a good opportunity to hand over to Åsa, so please continue.
Thank you, Kai. Yeah, so what Kai just mentioned, the divestment of Losec, that was once our big blockbuster, and that was invented by the scientist in Mölndal, so it was clearly an invented here product. Since then, our strategy with respect to externalization has changed significantly, and we do realize that innovation doesn't happen in isolation any longer. And as I mentioned slightly before, was that we believe that innovation is what drives our growth. And so therefore, partnering in all its different forms, as Kai just described, is really one of our basic pillars to drive our efforts to have an efficient business, but also to help patients with their needs. But in addition, I also want to highlight we have some other initiatives to help support the life science community as a whole. And so, for instance, the open innovation, where we provide access to tool compounds, even clinically ready compounds, libraries, screening technologies, and so forth. And within the Nordics, we are working with a business mentoring initiative where we work with startups which are associated with incubators and other innovation clusters. You probably have heard of the BioVenture Hub, and there's now also a new initiative. We're looking to create something similar to Medicon Village, the GoCo Health Innovation City. Due to the limited time, I won't be able to go through all of these different initiatives, but I will focus on what might be interesting for you if you want to partner with AstraZeneca. So, if you are interested in getting in contact with us, please do, preferably early, and you can do that multiple times if needed. And I already touched upon the 5 R's, which we use to assess projects, both internally and external opportunities. And when presenting your data, it's just highly recommended to be open if there are any gaps or any potential issues. Because if we do proceed in an interaction with you, we will have a due diligence, and the scientists will find these spots anyway. And of course, that will not be that positive far down the line to realize that you might have said that there are no issues whatsoever, and we end up. While on the other hand, if we take them up front, we could probably mitigate them and see if there's a solution around it. And so just as it is important to be open and transparent, also be very clear about what value you could add to AstraZeneca, but also if you have an idea of what value that we could add to your opportunity and also to your company. And should it be found that your opportunity is not maybe the optimal one at this moment, don't hesitate to come back if you have generated new data or new information. So this I already touched upon, so I will skip quickly over this as there's sort of limited time to this presentation. So some other tips regarding negotiation. If you want to strike a win-win deal and set a good platform for the future collaboration and interaction, we would like to you to focus on building that relationship and get trust between the companies. And just as much as we would prefer you to be clear, open, and honest with your major needs and potential major issues, we would do the same. And by doing that, it's so much easier to come up with a flexible and more innovative solution to come around those potential hurdles that might be there. So in essence, do trust that the partner that you are negotiating with also wants to strike that positive win-win deal. And then just another housekeeping thing to think about is to do ensure that you have your management insight and access to key decision makers, because nobody wants to do a long negotiation and then find out that what you thought you actually had agreed upon indeed wasn't agreed upon. And then just a few words on these other initiatives that we are working with to try to support the innovation climate here in the Nordics. We do not only want to talk to those of you that are having opportunities in the partnering stage, but also to the startups that are associated with incubators and other innovation clusters, and see if we can help then with strategic, non-confidential questions. So how it works is that we would then align these companies with our mentors, and then be able to provide the big pharma view on these strategic questions and just provide advice or challenge or whatever might be needed or wished by these startup companies. On the other hand, the AstraZeneca employees get the opportunity to meet with you innovative entrepreneurs and increasing their network and seeing interesting science. And I want to also emphasize that this is a complement to the existing incubator coaching and consultants that are out there. And we have done this now for a year or so, and we are looking for feedback both from these external companies but also from their mentors, and everybody seemed to think that this is a mutually beneficial activity that we are doing. So if you know those that might be interested, please mention this initiative. And then we do have the BioVenture Hub, which was established by AstraZeneca in 2014. It's located, as you can see, right in the middle of our facilities in Mölndal. At the moment, we have 28 different companies in there that can share expertise, network among themselves, but also network with the employees of AstraZeneca. And I want to also highlight that there is one company here today on doses that is located there, and I encourage you to stay to listen to the following panel discussion where Kai and Martin will talk about how they struck that deal and how we are collaborating together. Yes, I see I actually do have more time than I thought since I skipped over that slide there. So this was just a very brief introduction, obviously, to our partnering and our externalization activities. And if you want more information, I also encourage you to look at our website. And if you have any direct questions regarding partnering, please reach out to myself or to Kai. If you're interested in the BioVenture Hub, then please contact Magnus Björsne. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Åsa. Thank you very much for shaving a few minutes off our delayed schedule.
Welcome.
Yes, and up next for probably a similar presentation is Ralf Ackermann of Bayer. Welcome, Ralf.
See this? Yes, thank you so much. So I'll give you just a short intro on Bayer, what it is. And starting this, I'd like to emphasize a bit on the term I mentioned also before in our panel discussion. Bayer is not a pharma company, it's a life science company. And I'll elaborate a bit on this. So let's go ahead. First of all, that also links very close to our vision, Science for a Better Life. And when we say life, it is not only human life, it's animal life, and it's plant health life, and it's our nutrition around the globe. Because we are the only global company acting globally, which is working in all three segments of life, which is animals, human beings, and our agriculture, our food, our protection of plants in relation to that. So that makes us a bit unique, and that you can express why we're doing this in words, but you can also look at it from another perspective and seeing we actually work within the so-called trends, the mega trends of today, which we are faced by on the globe. We all know that we are all getting older, and we are living longer, and we are healthier. We have a better life perspectives. But we are also a growing population. By today, we are around 7.5 billion people on the globe. In 2050, we maybe be around 10 billion people. That also is a challenge in itself if you think about nutrition, provision of healthcare, all these matters. That's important. And then we have the pressure, which is called the pressure on the ecosystems. I mean, there's a lot of talk these days around climate changes, and that also affects, of course, our ecosystems, And why is that relevant and important for a company like us, a life science company? Because that relates to the capability of Earth giving us nutrition, I mean plants, seeds, whatever. And also there we are challenged. So that's just to elaborate a bit on what's actually the background for being a life science company and why we work as such. We have 3 business areas in Bayer. One of them is the prescription drugs, the pharma part as such. Then we have over-the-counter drugs, which is the consumer health. And then we have the crop science. At this event and this presentation, there's no time to go into detail on all of them, but I will of course focus on the pharma part of it, because that's where the topic is of today. So what is Bayer, if we look globally, what is the size of it? We are around 115,000 employees all over the globe, and we are affiliated almost in every country in the world. In Scandinavia here, we are headquartered in Stockholm, in the Nordic. For the Nordic regions, we are headquartered in Helsinki in Finland. We have in Scandinavia affiliates in Oslo, located there, and in Copenhagen located, and also in Stockholm, of course, for the Swedish part. Bayer as a company has a turnover of around, for the whole division, for all the 3 divisions, around 40 billion euros. We spend more than 5 billion euros on research and development, and around 3 billion euros is for the pharma. So that is really more than 50% we spend on innovation, you can say, research and development within pharma. So it is, as you mentioned in your question before in the panel, it is truly important for us acting in that matter. For Scandinavia, we are around 250 employees there, and there is an approximate turnover around 260-70 million euros presently, or last year. So that's just to give you some figures around Bayer also. Then we have several areas in our pharmaceutical pipeline, which you can say addresses most of the major therapy areas, major disease areas, but also minor areas, rare diseases. We are all over, you can say. But of course, there are some who are more prominent or dominating if you look presently and also for the future. And of course, our cardiovascular, where we have leadership within the NOACs, the new oral anticoagulants. There we are leaders, you can say, in Scandinavia, but also in many countries globally, and which is, you can say, every day a life-saving drug for people with diseases and therapies which need oral anticoagulation. In the oncology area, a lot is happening there. Actually, you will hear one good example of it today by one of my colleagues later on, what is happening there. But there we are present in all the major oncology, all the major diseases within oncology, which is mainly prostate cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, and some of the more rare cancer types also, with truly new innovative treatments, which just recently or very soon in Scandinavia will be launched, and also more traditional ones. And again, there's no time to go into detail of all of these, but we are definitely there. In ophthalmology, we have a leadership also in wet macular edema, which is an important disease to have a good treatment for, because if you're not treated, you become blind. So you can say we prevent millions of people becoming blind, and that is truly important. In the gynecology area, we are within anticonception, and that's primarily IODs. Then we have the hemophilia, where we're active in hemophilia A, with various 3 compounds that are now, and a new one to come up, which also addresses very much the convenience and the convenience of the treatment for both the person affected by hemophilia, but also the relatives, for example, if it's children. And then radiology, we are one of the global leaders within contrast media for radiology, for MR and CT scanning also. And then the other more rare illnesses such as sclerosis, infections, diabetes, erectile dysfunction, and male growth hormone deficiency, male hormone deficiency also. Actually, many of these areas which today were addressed in the presentations by the various companies. So just to give you a picture, and then let's go a bit around. So what is actually an opportunity for us to collaborate with us or be part of our innovation journey? We have the classic, of course, if you look at the globe, the classic discovery, research and development affiliates and localizations where we do this kind of activity. But we also have so-called innovation hubs. And the innovation hubs are those where you address more classic, you can say, innovation, but also digital innovation or whatever it relates to, as I mentioned before, also in discussion, what is important for us and how our compounds and drugs are being used and how does it provide the best care and treatment for the patients and their relatives. Are we located in Scandinavia with these kind of? Yes, we actually are. And again, you will hear from our colleague later on the activities in Oslo and also in Turku in Finland. We have research and development location there. Talking innovation, what is important innovation for us? It is a collaboration with whoever it is, with you or whoever it is. So it is a collaboration, and that means it requires a good relationship. It requires a persistency from the partner. It requires, as mentioned in the previous presentation, all these elements of open and honesty, and also being persistent when you have an idea. Don't give up right away. But you have to come to us. I mean, we have so many activities going on or whatever. We have the platforms where you can come to us and seek for you can say funding or whatever, but it has to be on your initiative. You have to show the proactiveness there. This open innovation approach, which you call, one way you can look at this and where you can see a lot of information is when you go on the web, on the internet. We have something called there. If you just Google it, Leaps by Bayer, if you just Google that, I think you will find all the information, how we work around innovation, which opportunities are there, which kind of funding structures are there, which kind of collaborations, if it's licensing agreement, collaborations, whatever. It's all there, and also how to apply for, you can say, collaborations with us. So I strongly recommend you to go there and look at all the opportunities you have here. And again, the idea can be very immature, it can be very mature. What is important, again, is that it truly can make a difference, that it has a clinical need, there is a medical need for it. That is important. That was, you can say, the more traditional collaboration on development. The other one, which you have a lot of focus on, which I mentioned, was the whole area around digitalization and digital health. And there we have also a rather well-known program now, which has run since 2013, which is called Grants for Apps. And that, again, you can go on the internet or just Google it, Grant for Apps, Bayer. You will come on the site, and you will see the opportunities there. And to say it very shortly, it's an idea. It's a forum where if you have ideas on how digital elements, be it applications or Internet of Things or whatever, that relates to behavior change, to better treatment, to better outcome, to adherence. We have ideas around that. You can again see there and be guided how you can seek for funding, how you can seek for guidance, how you can seek for R&D support, how you can even achieve grants, and how you also achieve local venues where you can together meet with other of us working within these areas and have sparring with them. So that's a great opportunity to enter a collaboration or enter innovation together with us. Yes, and I think that was that, and even 3 minutes left. I don't think we take questions, do we? No. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralf. And you're so fast we couldn't even put on the headset. So, no, thank you very much. I think we'll do the questioning later. There is a break in a little minute, and I'm thinking that there are people here who want to ask you questions. So, next up on stage is then Anna Gran again from Johnson & Johnson. Let's see if the technology works.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Thank you. All right. Last one, I think, before the break. Let me just get started. There we go. So, Johnson & Johnson is a large, probably the largest and most diversified healthcare company in the world. We are American. We are founded in 1886, I believe, so that makes us over 130 years old. Today, half of our business is pharmaceuticals. It goes under the name of Janssen, which is a Belgian pharmaceuticals company that we bought in the 50s that still certainly retained its R&D facilities in the Benelux, as well as its name and branding. About 30% of the business today is medical devices, mainly surgical equipment and implants. You might know brands such as Ethicon Endosurgery and Synthes. And 20% of the business is the consumer healthcare business, and you probably know the mother baby products as well as the kind of the oral health products and many more. Our sales today is, I think that's last year, is 82 billion. It's about the same as Denmark's entire export, which is where I live. So it's a lot. And we're 130,000 people. Now, the question is, with this kind of giant, how do you stay innovative? And I did say before that we are an R&D company, we are not a business development company, but at the same time, innovation happens everywhere, and most of it doesn't happen inside our company, but somewhere else. We're just one company. So certainly we recognize the need to also work with entrepreneurs and scientists. I think you've probably seen this picture. Either I've shown it or you've seen it elsewhere. This is the gray bar is what happens if you start too low in terms of how transformative and truly mind and game changing your innovation is, and then you develop it too slow, because other products will hit the market as well, and so you will end up being too late. However, if you start high and you have a really wild, game-changing idea, and you put speed behind accelerating its development, ultimately you will have something that's truly different once you launch it. And that's where value is generated, not just for you and the company, but also for people who really need it in their daily lives. So where we want to be is on top on that kind of the red speed line. So I'm part of Johnson & Johnson Innovation, and we are an organization that only works with external innovation, so innovators and scientists outside of our company walls. And certainly today, I think we're most of us is here to find that wonderful strategic partner that's going to change your life, that's going to, on the one hand, accelerate the development from an invention to an innovation and ultimately impact, but also on the other hand, give ideas and give agility to those ideas as well as true action forward. And so for sure, as I said, we need entrepreneurs. Johnson & Johnson Innovation needs smart minds outside of our company as well, because we want to access the best innovation out there. And certainly we believe that entrepreneurs need big companies, need the capital, need the infrastructure, and also the know-how. So somebody who can put 20 people behind an innovation and just kind of boost it forward to make sure that it really works in a human being and ultimately benefits humans as well. I also have a world map to show. This is Johnson & Johnson innovation, so not our company as such, but our external innovation ecosystem. And it really was created to kind of move us away from the point of view where we sat in some kind of location that was very convenient for us, maybe in the east coast of the US, and then you'd have to go there and find us and know who to talk to. But ultimately, we really wanted to kind of get into a model 6 years ago where we're wherever you are, where I'm in the Nordics, I work with the London Innovation Center, and then we got people all over where innovation happens. So we try to be visible, and we try to be people that is just easy to approach and talk to. The red dots are the innovation centers. I belong to the European hub in London, even if I live in Denmark, because I cover the Nordics and the Baltics in terms of new ventures and scouting. And then we have the blue dots are our J-Labs incubators. I'll tell you a little bit more of those later. And then we also have partnering offices, especially in Asia, because, well, it's geographically and culturally quite diverse, and we just have one innovation center in Shanghai. So we try to be in more places there as well. So I belong to the innovation centers. We're really catalysts, if you will. My job is to look for exciting innovation and then to facilitate and or lead the negotiations of a partnership. And we also have JJDC, which is a venture capital arm. It's a strategic venture capital arm. We've got venture capitalists sitting in all 4 innovation centers, and they typically wouldn't invest in a project if there wasn't a scientific buy-in, but they certainly kind of have their own projects as well. And then J-Labs, the incubators, we've got one in Europe on our Janssen headquarters in Belgium. Most of the other ones are in North America. They are what we call no-strings incubators. So we decide who gets to sit there and use our state-of-the-art equipment. But then once you're there, you can talk to us and use our business development support or talk to a competitor. It's really up to you. And finally, business development, I'd say on the farm side specifically, you'd encounter us if you already are in phase 2 or 3 or you've got a product on the market. The innovation centers work with earlier things, so prior to clinical proof of concept. And Janssen Business Development handle the larger deals, the mergers, the acquisitions type of thing. Also for medical device, we've got similar teams and consumer. So then how do we work with innovators? This is a snapshot of what you see at an innovation center such as London. You typically see scientific leadership. So if you strike a partnership with us, you'll always be working with a scientist who's placed near your geographic location and who then has leads a team of experts behind them from the J&J side. And then we also have the deal-making teams. So we've got our own transactions people, we've got our own finance people, our own legal people, IP lawyers, contracting specialists, and we've also got our own communications people. So what you see is really kind of a mixture of people that are there to help set up the best partnerships and also lead those partnerships. And no partnership looks alike. So it's really about what is it that you need and how can we help you? And on the other hand, how does it fit with what we're also trying to achieve? So we've been around for 6 years now. Over 6 years, I think, already. And we've just in EMEA, European region mainly, we've struck over 160 partnerships. Certainly quite a few also in the Nordics. Globally, our tally is over 400 at the moment. Through our other 3 innovation centers. So we're certainly around, and not just in a couple of countries, but everywhere. And there are people such as myself also in many European countries, just because we really want to make sure that we both find innovation close to us, but also it's easier to negotiate that partnership. So then, what do we look for? I think we covered part of that already in the panel, and certainly my colleagues from Bayer and AstraZeneca said already most of the things that big pharma companies and health care companies are looking for. I'd just like to add maybe one thing. Science has to come first. You have to have a really, really good case. And then you have to have a good plan at the tail. So you need to have an understanding of how to develop it. And not just to develop it to a point where you are today, but actually to show that there's a plan to the clinic, there's a line of sight to the clinic, so that we can kind of anchor our thinking, oh, okay, that's what you want to do. Well, how does it look for us? Would we like to do that? Maybe we understand you might think it's better to go for a rare indication. It's maybe easier from a market access point of view to kind of make yourselves and your investors and your company happy. Maybe we're kind of envisioning to taking more risk and going for a larger indication. So let's negotiate and let's see where we end up. But ultimately it shows that you've got a vision and you've got the science, but you've also got a plan, an idea of what you'd like to do by yourself, or also certainly what you'd like your partner to do. I'll just spend the last few minutes talking about what is it that we're looking for. And just please remember, if it's not on the slide, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to see it. Certainly if you think that we're missing something, that we'd be silly if we don't look at what you're working on, please talk to us. These are areas where we have kind of a strategic strategic interest in, so where we do have already set aside focus and resources and also know-how in most cases. Of course, sometimes there might be areas that are totally new where we're actually leaning on your expertise and other external innovations to help take us into that space. And those are particularly interesting collaborations as well. So this is a top-level view. I'll go a little bit more in depth into all of them. You can see our three sectors: pharmaceuticals, medical devices, consumer products, and then the right side, a kind of grouping of things where we just want to put forward that, yes, we do work across these sectors, like with vision care, it's both surgical, consumer lenses, as well as pharmaceutical treatments, specifically for retinal diseases. And then for cross-sector, meaning, again, things that span multiple sectors, such as our lung cancer initiative, where they look at early ways to risk screen, diagnose earlier, and treat, whether it's pharmaceutical, surgical, whatever treatment, and then monitor so that you could intercept and perhaps manage and even cure cancer quite differently from before. Pharmaceuticals, these are the kind of the big buckets, the 6 therapeutic areas: immunology, autoimmune disease, neuroscience, mostly mood disorders and neurodegenerative disease, oncology, both solid as well as hematological tumors, and certainly immune oncology as well. Cardiovascular and metabolism. In early stage partnering, I'd say the focus is really on metabolism, and retinal diseases are kind of weirdly in there because we started from metabolic indications and then kind of have slowly expanded. Infectious diseases, vaccines, and then pulmonary hypertension as well. For medical devices, these are the kind of the strongest areas that we've got internally as well. Cardiovascular, so really kind of heart conditions, obesity, certainly surgical interventions, osteoporosis, surgery as such, osteoarthritis as such, and then I'd like to just bring up all kinds of sophisticated technologies that surgeons use in the OR, so navigation and so forth. For consumer, this is the kind of the current setup. We're mainly focusing in terms of external collaboration and partnerships. It's self-care, which you could also dub OTC to some extent, and then skin health, whether it's not treating skin diseases, but really just from a kind of a consumer point of view, aiming for healthier skin and maintaining that healthy, youthful skin. Vision I already talked about, and I think cross-sector, all these collection of initiatives I also covered. WWDA stands for World Without Disease, so it's really what I mentioned, screen for risk, intercept, prevent, cure disease instead of treating people who have already got the disease and are quite sick. Right, I think I'm running out of time, so I'll stop here. Please do come talk to us, come talk to me. As I said, if it's not on the list, you think you got something truly differentiated, don't hesitate, just talk to us anyway and tell us what you got and also what you'd like to have in terms of a partnership, what you're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna Gran of Johnson & Johnson. So that actually means that this part of the session is over, and now we're going to have a short networking break. It's going to be 15 minutes, and I will see you back here in exactly 15 minutes then. Thank you very much. Okay, we are back from the break and happy to see that you're still with us. It's getting late in the afternoon, but we are going to finish the Biostock Life Science Summit 2019 with another panel discussion, or a panel talk, if you will. And this time I have the pleasure to be accompanied by Jan Børge Jacobsen from Bayer in Norway. We have then, as you know, Kai Brickman of AstraZeneca. And the newcomers are Per Nilsson of Piloxa and also Martin Olofsson of Ondosis. So let's start with giving them a warm hand. So the subject of this talk, I should ask you first to turn your microphones on. You push the little button up and the light should be green. The subject of this little talk here is key learnings from entering a big pharma partnership, because that is something that all of you have actually experienced. And I would like you to start just with a short introduction of yourselves, and you can start, Jan Børge.
Thank you, Jonas. I'm Jan Børge Jacobsen. I'm a chemist of background, and came into Bayer via the acquisition of a Norwegian startup company, Algeta. So I've been around in the pharma for 30 years-ish, manufacturing, project management, and CMC.
Okay, thank you. Short and snappy.
Okay, thank you, Jonas. And also now opportunity for me to say thank you to you for inviting AstraZeneca to this meeting. It's really a pleasure to be here. Really a pleasure also for me because I started my career in Sweden in '96 as a postdoc at Lund University. So I was here 1 year and then moved up to Umeå University to stay there 1 year with Jan Schielberg. So I am educated as an organic chemist and with a PhD in organic chemistry from Göttingen University. The plan was to stay in Sweden for 1 year. I am still here, so after the postdoc time, I joined at the time Astra Hässle in Mölndal. Now it is AstraZeneca Gothenburg. I worked in research in many roles there, and since 2012, I am director in AstraZeneca's business development organization.
Thank you.
So I'm Martin Olofsson. I did my studies here as well, actually, but in business administration. So I have a commercial background from pharma. Started within AstraZeneca for 25 years, whereof 20 of those were in pure commercial roles, everything from selling Losec, we talked about it earlier, up to having a significant P&L for the Nordic Baltics for the company, but also spent 4 years on a global franchise in terms of our inhalers, until 2 years ago, when I had the opportunity to spin out from AstraZeneca, the company that we today call Ondosis. So that's me.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Per. I'm one of the co-founders of Piloxa, which we started in 2015. My background is in business. I studied like 200 meters from here at LTH, so it's very, very nice to be back. Piloxa is a Swedish digital health company based in Stockholm, and we're working with improving patient adherence and patient engagement within clinical trials and patient support programs. And I'm super happy to be here, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Martin, could you also just shortly tell us a little bit about, like Per did, about Ondosis? What do you do?
Yeah, I think like we are probably having identified the same dilemma, that there is a quite absurd idea around putting 10 years and $1 billion into pharmaceutical development, and then that ends up in a pill, which disappears in space, and nobody knows what's happening, and the opportunity to individualize dosing is difficult. So we inherited in Ondosis an idea from AstraZeneca to be able to use granules or pellets or microparticles and integrate them into a digital handheld device, which then would enable you to do much more individualized, personalized dosing and flexible dosing, connect it to enable adherence programs, patient engagement, data capture, protect the medicine from people that should not use it, and also, in a way, simplify swallowing for patients that have a dry mouth or kids and so on. So that's the idea we inherited, and I brought the thing because it's handheld, and today it looks like this. So it's basically a handheld device which has a part which is reusable, for a year, and a disposable part that keeps 1 month of treatment that you get from the pharmacy. So that's the product.
Okay. It's actually very similar to my son's Nintendo Wii control.
On purpose, because what we didn't want, that's interesting when you think about product development. First we said, we're going to do something so innovative, it needs to look different. But then you scare patients away. It needs to look intuitive, and it shouldn't scare people away that it's something new and dangerous. It should be something new, but also familiar. So many people say that, and actually I take that as a positive, let's say, grade for the development team.
Yeah.
Really.
I can just also add in terms of product development, because we also had similar discussions, and what we also found when it comes to patient adherence, and especially poor adherence, is that people don't want to show that they're taking medication. So if you look at these like old pill boxes from the 1950s, they all very stigma. They look like they're from the like someone who's 80 years old who's using them, and the younger generation don't want to use that. So we made a very camouflage product, which you can't really sense that it is medications inside.
That's interesting. Per, you, Piloxa, actually entered into a partnership with Bayer, and that was as recent as, was it March this year, or was it?
Yeah, we announced our partnership in 2019, but we've been working together since 2017. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But it would be interesting to hear a little bit about the road to getting into that partnership. What were you? At what point did you start the relationship, so to speak, with Bayer?
Yeah, so we started in the spring of 2017 when we approached Bayer and saying that, well, we have this interesting concept, we think you could really benefit from it, and then we were able, after a couple of meetings, to get a pilot project going, which we then did in 2018. And from there, Bayer could see that we are reasonable to work with, and then we proceeded to deepen our relationship within 2019, which was the one that we announced. And from there, we have now initiating additional trials to strengthen our partnerships.
All right. And just to be super clear, then, because we've seen here, they've shown the slides and how to contact them. How was it in practical? Who did you contact and where did it happen?
So we actually did through cold mailing, which was apparently it works, and we just sent them to I think it was the marketing department, and we knew that pharma likes things that healthcare providers likes. So we went to the healthcare providers and said that, well, we have this thing. Can you write a letter of a recommendation saying that this is something that you would like to use in your practice? And then we took this letter from a professor and we went to Bayer saying that, well, could you finance something that we can do together with a clinic? So that's how we got their initial interest, and I think it took like 2 meetings to get to that point, which was super swift. It usually takes like a year or so. So thank you for that.
And Martin, so coming from being a spin-out, then that's a completely different approach from cold emailing. And can you tell us a little bit about how that project was spun out? And yeah.
I will, but I also would probably guess Kai would want to chip in on that. But for me, it was a situation of after 25 years and having a great time within AstraZeneca, being a bit urged to do something different, and bumped into a person who is leading the bioventure called Magnus Björnsne, who said, we have some exciting projects that we would want to test if they can get better traction, more air under the wings externally. And we want someone with an entrepreneurial mindset, but also with the skills and capabilities and some seniority that understands deal making, the commercial aspects and the development aspects in pharma. Would you be interested to engage into conversation around that? So that was basically a coffee break discussion in that situation. And that's easy, but then you want to put that on paper, and we come back to that. Then suddenly, it gets a little bit tougher. But I guess, Kai, you have more insights in this.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit a special project because it's a spin-out project. So I think those of you who have a little bit of insight into how big pharma is working probably understand what we did here was quite innovative, and we had not done it before. So I think the story is we had a prototype of a device for a project that we had stopped for internal development for certain reasons. And this prototype was on the shelf and no longer a use for AstraZeneca. Then, as Martin mentioned, we had, I think, we have the BioHub at AstraZeneca Gothenburg. Really, I think with Magnus Björkne as the head of it, one of the most creative, out-of-the-box thinkers that I've ever met in my whole life. So I think it was his proposal that he said, okay, we have this device, why are we not thinking about a spin-out, and why not, I think, establishing this new company on the BioHub? And I have already an entrepreneur that would be interested to do it, and I actually need someone that is negotiating this deal on behalf of AstraZeneca, and it will not take a lot of time, Kai, and are you willing to help? I think, knowing Magnus very well, I said, yes, I'm definitely willing to help. Sounds very exciting. I had to clarify with my boss at the time because I knew it would take quite some time, and this is where the relationship between Martin and myself started really, I think, I being on the side of AstraZeneca as a deal negotiator and Martin as a new entrepreneur driving on doses forward.
Great. Jan Børge, you were, like you said, you were there when Algeta was then became a part of Bayer, and that actually started with a license deal, the first. Could you tell us a bit about the background for that?
Yes, for Algeta, it was founded in 1997, so they have been working for a long time to develop a novel platform for alpha emitters to start using that in oncology. So it took some time, and it was always a rush for money. That period I was not in the company, so they entered a license agreement, a partnership agreement with Bayer in 2009. And they have just started the phase 3 studies. They knew this was kind of a Viking mentality with this startup company. So they started the phase 3 study. They knew they didn't have the money to complete the phase 3 studies. So they had to enter the partnership with Bayer. And that happened in 2009. And then it was a period for 5 years, where there was a partnership, and then we launched together, Algeta and Bayer, the first product coming out of this Algeta company in 2013, and 9 months after, we were acquired by Bayer. So it was a partnership and then a full acquisition of Algeta. So I experienced both phases actually, so it was quite different being still an independent company in a partnership agreement with Bayer, and then after the acquisition, full integration of the Algeta company.
Mm. And then having been in sort of different phases of a partnership and with a different entry point, it would be interesting to hear then from a perspective where your company was actually then acquired by Bayer, how the integration phase, how was that?
Yes, after the acquisition in 2014, overall, I would say it was a good takeover. I have been around in this business for some time. I have experienced acquisition, mergers from GE Healthcare, MSM Nycomed. So it was a nice and smooth process where the function which was retained. So Bayer decided to retain the special company competence within the Algeta company. And but of course, it took some time to get connected to the new functions, being research, being the development functions, being the manufacturing functions, and of course there was some battles around the clinical development and the regulatory, where there was complementary and also same competence from before. So those areas was a little bit cumbersome. But for the science technology part, they more or less operated in the same way as before, but with a new reporting line in a global function. And it was more silos, of course. And going from a fast, nimble, direct decision-making structure, we went into a more big pharma thing where it's functional silos, things takes more time. Alignment was a big word, which wasn't apparent at all in Algeta. What does it mean? It means time. Things takes time. So that was some adjustment on that part.
Okay. Per, you are sort of, in comparison, in an early phase of a partnership. What are your expectations going forward in terms of, the outcome, of course, of the partnership?
No, so I think we have several expectations, and we're already getting value from them. There was a slide there saying like access to experience, access to knowledge. We're already getting that. We're already starting new projects together, access to different types of funding, and also for us, when we do like when we do additional sales to other companies, it's obviously super good to have a strong partner such as Bayer to show them that we are actually capable of delivering value to big pharma. So I would say that's the main aspects that we're looking forward, but also getting right now in the partnership.
Mm. And if we talk, you listed a number of benefits, I would say. Are there any cons to this story?
Obviously so I would say that we're internally is very, very agile. We take risk. We work very fast. So it's been a new mindset of us coming to big pharma, since it takes a lot of time. They're usually quite risk averse. They maybe don't. I mean, we're all in the same room working together, and then you talk to someone and saying, yeah, we will have a meeting in, 3 months to discuss this, because then we will all be in the same room. Whereas when they say, well, can you talk to the legal department? Then I would just say, yeah, I will be back in 2 minutes, because I am also the legal department. So it's been a process to understand each other there, but we're getting into it. And then also from the beginning, when we're trying to get the partnership, I think it's a good mindset to see that it's our top prio to get this partnership, but it's probably prio number 30 or something for the guy or woman that you're talking to, because they have so many other things to talk about. So you really have to push it in order for them to think about you all the time. So that's also a thing that's worked out very well for us.
And Martin, from your perspective, being a spin-out from AstraZeneca and then working at AstraZeneca BioVenture Hub, how do you feel about that? Has there ever been a cultural clash for you?
Yes, there has. I mean, because suddenly you get different shoes on, and you realize that the company you loved from the inside for 25 years actually have some of the attributes that Per just now talked about. Big companies want to be agile and fast and so on, but I think it's fair to say, and this is not AstraZeneca because we have made a deal with a German company, we are in a discussion with a Japanese company. They are not as fast as they do believe they are, and they are absolutely not as fast as they want to be, I think. Which is just, that's because decision making by committee, and the committee meets every second week or every month, and live with it. And you are maybe the top 3 priority if you're very good, top 30 if you're not so good, but you're never number 1. And to make a deal with AstraZeneca or whoever buyer is for a small company number 1. So I think there is a big culture clash. And obviously there is some frustration sometimes, and Kai has to carry that, but because you know how it could be within. So you think you understand the animal you're working with, but you realize you don't, because
or
you're
the
on the
beast.
outside. Suddenly you're on the outside, right?
Yeah.
But then again, I think the benefit we have is that we are sprung from there, which means that there are stakeholders within that still sees on doses as a little bit of their baby, which means that when the formal route is tough and hard and by committee, There might be the informal route, which is a cup of coffee and resolving some stuff. Meanwhile, the process is kind of going. There are different ways of doing things, behind the scenes, and I think we can take some advantage of that without giving too much away. Here on TV, we now and then are using that opportunity, let's say.
That's great. Jan Børge, and how was it for you then to start working with Bayer and them coming from Germany, I presume, and into a small Norwegian company? You were about 40 people when this acquisition happened. Is that correct?
Yes. When we did the acquisition, the company was larger. Okay. When we entered the license agreement in 2009, we were around 40 persons. But the deal with Bayer was to have a co-promotion. So Algeta was building up their own sales and marketing organization in the United States. So at that time point, we have launched the product. It was a company of 180 people. But still a small company. One was placed in the US, the sales and marketing, and then the Norwegian company. And of course, it was on, if you talk about cultural clashes, of course, it's about the spirit. It's to be close to the baby where you have been trying to nurture and get flying for like 15 years for some of the people in the company. And then suddenly comes into a company with many products. And there is not only one focus. So, of course, things takes more time, and that was frustrating for many. And as also mentioned, steering committees. Yes, things takes time. It needs to go to steering committee, and for the Algeta people, it was important to get into the right steering committees, so we could have a focus on our product and also try to take part of the decision making for our kind of product.
We also, I mean, I know that the Algeta acquisition was quite a large deal, at least in a Nordic perspective. I think it was something 19 billion Swedish kronor.
Right.
Correct. And about negotiating a deal, we saw that earlier in a slide that openness is important and being transparent with your strength and perhaps your weaknesses. But Kai, from a business development perspective, what are your best advice to your counterparts, or if I may say that, the smaller companies, when it comes to actually negotiating?
I think I would mention the point that Åsa already mentioned earlier. It is really about building trust between the persons that have to negotiate the deals. And this is what I mentioned earlier. I think Martin and I, we came into this sitting on different sides, and we had the task to get an SA transfer agreement in place, shareholder agreement, because we also got support from the Gothenburg University Ventures for these deals, and we were also in agreement that we wanted to have also a collaboration between Ondosis and AstraZeneca. So we had 3 agreements to negotiate to each other within this environment that you just described in the big pharma giving away an asset. So we had to involve all the senior leaders. I think we still did a quite good job because some things were done after half a year. But I know that Martin, of course, thinks we could have done things much, much faster. I can set this in relation to other deals that we have done in AstraZeneca, but I think it has not worked if Martin and I not always had come back to, okay, now let us sit down. We want to solve this together. I think I can be very honest. We had discussions that were not always pleasant, but I think to have the trust for each other and say we want to make a deal here together was, I think, from my perspective, the most important thing.
I sort of envisioned negotiating as a spin-off, that you're kind of like my son negotiating with me over getting paid to mow the lawn or do the dishes. But I guess you have to be a bit more professional about these things.
Yes.
Yeah. So, sorry, Martin.
Yeah, and I think that was a bit of a, to be also totally honest, I realized that you needed to be that. You realize that this is not a son negotiating with father about, borrowing the car of a weekend. It is something sharp and something that AstraZeneca needed to go fairly high up to do and had driving forces which were different than the driving forces of endosys. So it was cuddly from my side in the beginning until I realized this is actually not for fun. This is real. And that took a few weeks and months of friction before I realized, no, okay, so I need to step up here because this is not a game. We will not pull this off just by being, let's say, colleagues, friends with a shared vision and ambition. We need to do this properly and roll the sleeves up. So that took some time.
But you landed it.
We landed well.
Yeah.
And we probably should stay. I think we still have a collaboration. AstraZeneca is still, I think, owns 19% equity in Ondosis. I sit on the board for Ondosis, and I think it is really, really nice to see that this company that we formed in 2017 is doing very well. So it was worth the hard work.
Yeah. It almost sounds like when I say to my son then that you can keep negotiating, but you're living in my house. So, Per, from your perspective then, coming completely from the outside, approaching a big pharma and more or less saying that we have this, are you interested? How was the negotiating part for you guys? Was there a negotiation?
So there was, there was two parts to it. The first one in 2017. Then I think we made it very easy because we presented a project which was very easy to accept in terms of money, etc. So we got the foot in. So there was, as far as I know, not so much negotiation. And that was a strategic decision as well for us because we know that it will be beneficial for us in the long term. Then on the second part, there were definitely some negotiations and yeah, things heated a little bit, but I think we were very happy once we got out of it, and it's a both win-win situation. It's also a happy, and we definitely came out happy from it. So yeah, we're super happy about it.
Great.
Make a small amendment to that. Still live in my house. I think the right thing to say is, Dad, I'm 18, and although I borrow your car this weekend and now and then, I'm grown up, I'm making my own decisions, and you can't interfere. So I think there is something around that. You need to move out and become your own, even if you're a spin-out. If you think you live in your father's house, you will never strive, and you will never be able to attract a deal from a Pfizer or a Bayer if they would believe that actually, legally and also mindset-wise, you're AstraZeneca's son. So you need to be able to stand on your own feet, right, and be a mature individual as a company. So I think just as a small amendment to the
Yeah, that's great.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to also add to the acquisition of Algeta and Bayer. It was a successful story actually, and after the acquisition of Algeta in 2014, Bayer have actually invested more than 100 million euro in Oslo. We have retained the major part of the Algeta people, so we are still like 80 people from the previous Algeta company, and we have retained the production in Norway. So they have put a lot of trust in the Norwegian organization and also put Oslo on the map for the R&D hubs in the Bayer globally on R&D. So it has been a successful acquisition, a good story. So I would just wanted to add that as well. Important.
That was a very good addition. Our time has actually run out, and I think it's great to end it on a positive note like that. With a success story. We're looking forward to following Ondosis and Piloxa's stories, and hopefully they will end up as big as successes. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Let's give them a warm hand.
Thank you.
And so that actually also concludes the show, I was going to say, but the 2 days of Biostock Life Science Summit 2019. It's been a great pleasure to be able to host our esteemed guests, investors, and also should not forget to mention all the people watching online. Thank you for watching. We will continue this tradition. This was the second year we did the summit, and we'll definitely do it next year as well. And of course, you are all invited. Perhaps not all in the same capacity, because that would be a rerun, and no one really enjoys the rerun if it's not Dirty Dancing or something like that. Sorry, rambling. Anyway, in October 2020, we'll be back with this. And again, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching and coming. And I should also say that after this, there will be a small bar with some